Incoming message, extremely unusual in composition. Translation includes many lingual anomalies. Overall accuracy of translation is unknown.
Hello, Extremely! I hope you like to play. Some campers are not so good for games.
Star Control 2. In my opinion, it's one of the most quintessential cult classics of the 90s. Definitely most people, even people who gamed a lot in the early 90s, haven't heard of it.
Star Control. I'd never heard of Star Control. The name isn't that familiar in the games industry.
Well, aside, it's ridiculous that this is all taking place in public.
I just want to check what Star Control is.
Yet, it has a fan base so dedicated that fans are supporting and modding the game, even to this day, which I find quite impressive considering the game came out in 1992, making it only 2 years younger than the Super Nintendo. So, I admit, most of my videos are really just me complaining about things I don't like. So I figured it's about time I actually talk about things I do like for a change. So let's get comfy and see what it is about Star Control 2 that I find so special. One thing you might recognize about this game is the name of this company, Toys for Bob. Currently famous for their Skylandro series, the franchise that made Activision billions, and prevented Spyro from appearing in anything non-Skylanders related for years to come. The founders, Fred Ford and Paul Reich III, not only started their careers making the Star Control series, but still work in the company to this day. More on that later, but apparently the guys have a knack for creating good ideas. Because the point of this review is to hopefully have you give the game a shot, I want to point out that the version of the game I'm playing is the Urquan Masters fan port of the game, which you could download for free right now. The fanbase has updated the graphics and included a lot of nice extra features. For the most part, I'll stick to the original pixel art, but I do think both styles look great. I also won't go into major spoiler territory, because not only do I not have the time to talk about every cool secret or plot point, but I also think it would be more fun if players discovered these things themselves. So, the story begins with us getting told that we were on a human colony, stuck on an alien planet for about 20 years. After digging around for quite some time, we figure out that the planet was a factory made for making starships. Pretty convenient. We've lost contact with the rest of Earth, and the last thing we know is that humans and other alien races were at war against the evil Urquan and their battle thralls. We finally make a bare-bones spaceship using whatever parts we can find and fly off to discover what happened to Earth. We go to Earth and it's red for some reason. Turns out it's covered in an impenetrable shield, explaining the red.
Attention unidentified space vessel.
We soon get a distress call from a nearby space station circling Earth, saying they need emergency supplies and to go to Mercury to get them.
Thanks, I'll make sure to mention this the next time I talk with our masters.
So, thus begins our first example of mineral mining and the start of what I would consider to be the game's tutorial. Outside of exploring open space, you can really break this game into 3 parts. You basically have to get good at all 3 if you expect to beat the game. The first part, mineral mining, isn't something I'm gonna sugarcoat. It plainly sucks. At best, it's tedious and boring, and at worst, it's frustrating and rage-inducing. You see, in order to get resources, especially early on, you'll have to mine planets and do it a lot. There are 2 main issues though. Number 1, it's too simple. You use some of your ship's fuel, by the way, your ship has fuel and you could run out of it. You use some of your fuel to put down a scout ship that collects resources and brings them back to your ship. These resources can then act as a currency for upgrades and such for your ship. But as you can see, there isn't anything engaging about it. Just driving around and collecting resources with different colors indicating different values. Now, issue 2. It's frustrating. On more difficult worlds, you can have fire and earthquakes. Fire and earthquakes aren't so bad because for the most part, they can be avoided. Actually, I think it makes driving around a bit more fun because you're avoiding things. Lightning, on the other hand, just like in real life, is pretty much completely unpredictable, and can kill you in a second, meaning you just wasted resources and health. But thankfully I consider it the worst part of the game, which means everything from here isn't so bad. Outside of minerals, there is also biological data that can be collected by killing animals. Living things range from almost completely passive to bloodthirsty and willing to swarm you in seconds. I just cleansed this planet of all of its life. See ya! So back to our tutorial, we give the space station our resources and he explains what happened over the past 20 years. Surprise, we lost, and we were enslaved by the Urquan. You can ask him quite a few things about Earth history, lore, and alien lore, which not only do I find quite interesting, it's actually quite useful information. But we have no time for that because...
Captain, listen closely. Long-range sensors show a ship closing on this station fast. Our computer identifies it as Ilrath, Avenger class. I think you've got a fight on your hands, Captain.
By the fetid breath of the Dark Twin.
Now, this part of the tutorial introduces us to the other two parts of the game, talking to aliens and combat. Thankfully, unlike mining, the other two aren't bad at all. Talking to aliens is my, and likely most people's, favorite part of the game, and why I think it's actually worth playing all these years later. First off, just look at this guy, how highly detailed his art and animation is. He's one of the more boring designs in my opinion, and yet he's so fun to just look at and talk to.
A human and an alien starship. How fascinating.
What sets this game apart from many sci-fi games is that the aliens look, well, alien. So many video games these days just reskin or slightly modify humans and call those aliens. While this game has some of those too, they're far outnumbered by the strange ones. I'm not exactly sure why most aliens in sci-fi are just reskinned humans. I figure it's a combination of the fact that it's easier to animate 3D models if they're all based on the same template. I've also heard people say that it's easier for people to identify with an alien if it looks more human. But that's stupid, since even kids can identify with a toaster if you give it eyes and a mouth. I honestly just blame laziness and uncreativity. But thankfully, this game has creativity in spades. Like, look at this thing, or whatever these guys are. Okay man, you could just keep your fingers away from me. I don't care if it's actually secret code for the player to realize you're actually otherworldly monsters from another dimension. If you are a fan of classic sci-fi books, especially books like David Brim's The Uplift series, then you're definitely gonna love this game. It's clear that Fred and Paul are huge fans of sci-fi classics. And don't just think the aliens are all style and no substance either. It's clear some of these aliens are just made as jokes, but each race has quite a bit of lore you can get out of them. And getting the right information out of these aliens is quite important. This game doesn't have a quest log, so you better have good memory or be willing to write down what you hear if you want to play this game optimally. Speaking of jokes, this game has just the right type of humor for me. It ranges from silly
We are the Coke, children of the stellar breeze.
to dark
Something to the effect of real soon.
and silly dark,
No more Anderson stories.
but can shift tones to serious pretty quickly.
Something ancient. A sickly smell. A chilling wind. My ancestors scream from within their chambers in my mind.
Weak and helpless. But here is a human.
Okay, this red spider guy has been waiting long enough. Let's commence the fighting. The third and final important skill in this game. So have you ever played Asteroids and wondered what it would be like if there was a PvP mode? Probably not, but that sums up the combat system of this game quite well. Two ships in a 2D plane shoot at each other. Things like gravity from planets and cover from asteroids both play a role in combat. One thing I find a bit strange is that your health is measured in crew. This means every time you get hit, no matter how small, you'll be losing at least one crew member. It kind of makes me feel bad knowing that my incompetence just killed a dozen guys. And you'll probably be losing quite a bit early game, since your ship starts out weak.
Try to avoid getting gruesomely killed, Captain.
But as time goes on, you get stronger and more powerful thanks to upgrades. I recommend first upgrading your turning speed so you can actually hope to hit what you're trying to aim at. You can also use ships from alien races that you've convinced to join your cause. This gives you quite an advantage in battle, especially later on when you want to strategically choose the right ships to go to battle with. You can also escape combat if you realize you're about to get wrecked, but keep in mind it uses fuel and it takes a few seconds to charge up, leaving you vulnerable until you could actually escape. Oh, and the game gives you an option to have an AI pilot your ship for you if you're really one of those skip combat all story sort of people.
What a beautiful sight, Captain. I haven't seen an Avenger blown away like that.
So with our spider buddy gone, we are free to leave our solar system and explore the galaxy to find information and potential allies to your cause. This is the point where the game really opens up. This is a very non-linear game. While there's a general path many players are going to take, it's pretty unlikely you'll have a similar experience the second time around. Before you actually do head out of the solar system, I recommend printing out this map, or at the very least keeping it on a separate tab that you could look at. For those who actually bought the game on release, you would get this as a poster. It's a map of the galaxy before humans lost the Urquan War. While it's outdated, it really helps in giving you a general game plan of where to go and what to do. With the game pretty much just throwing you out in the open, telling you good luck, the player could use as much help as they could get. But I don't want you to get the wrong idea. The game is far from impossible, and I do believe most players can beat it without a walkthrough as long as they are perceptive. Just make sure you are ready, prepared, and have a general game plan before venturing off. As soon as you leave the solar system, different ships can intercept you. One of the advantages of giving your ship a lot of thrusters is oftentimes being able to outrun enemies. But if you do want to fight them, the reward is resources, which can take away from the repetitive mineral grinding. Another thing you have to keep in mind before venturing out is to make sure you have enough fuel to reach your destination. Run out, and you're stranded until another ship finds you. The ship could be a helpful merchant willing to sell you fuel, but it's more likely to be an enemy. The plus side to all this is the sense of discovery in this game I find unmatched. Each star system has its own secrets to find, and you'll never know what those secrets will be. Unlike so many modern open world games today, you aren't just rewarded with random loot or enemies to fight, but meaningful interactions and secrets. You can seriously beat this game and not discover half the alien races this galaxy has to offer. I've probably played this game for 100 hours, and I know for a fact I haven't discovered everything. I love that in this game, most of the content is optional. On my first playthrough, I think I found a little over half the races, but not even a fifth of all the secrets. Don't spend too much time wandering though. There is a reason this game has a calendar, constantly showing you the date. In this game, the date does matter. Specific things will happen at or after specific times. Thankfully, as long as you keep this in mind, I wouldn't consider this technical time limit the game gives you as too harsh. Though, I will say, not to give too much away, there's a reason you don't want to diddle-dally too much. Yes, even if it's because you're trying to sleep with a siren. As for this game's music, you've been listening to it the whole time. The Urquan Masters port allows you to choose between original and remix music, and I enjoy both. One thing I was surprised to find out is that most of the game's music was contributed by people online. Paul and Reich offered $50 to $500 for anyone who could make music they liked. Thanks to this, the music sounds quite varied. The soundtrack gives each race and situation its own style and feel. Jumping topics, many of you might be wondering why I'm talking about Star Control 2, but failed to mention any other Star Controls. After all, if the game is called Star Control 2, there has to be a 1, and maybe even a 3. Well, Star Control 1, being the first game Paul and Reich ever developed, was a lot more bare bones. It's basically just the combat part of 2, but that being the entire game. It does have some story and lore, but nowhere near as much as 2. As for Star Control 3,
they are coming. We
don't talk about Star Control 3. Just know that Paul and Reich didn't consider it canon because they didn't write it themselves. As if that's the only reason not to play Star Control 3.
They appear to be getting more and more erratic. They were never too stable.
Ugh. What I've showed you is basically Star Control 2 in a nutshell. Well, that is if you don't want me to go into the plot points, secrets, or many fan theories involving pretty much every inch of the game. Someday, I would like to make a spoiler-heavy review, but that's for another time. Until then, maybe I piqued your interest just enough to give it a try. Have fun jumping into this rabbit hole yourself. However, this is far from the end of the Star Control series. While there hasn't been an officially released Star Control game since 1996, somehow, We have 2 Star Control games in the works currently. Under normal circumstances, this would be great news.
Happy days and jubilation!
I never thought we'd get a new Star Control game, let alone 2 being developed at the same time. One made by Stardog Games, known for their Sins of a Solar Whatever series, called Star Control Origins, and another made by the original creators, Paul and Fred, called Ghost of the Precursors. For Stardog's game, it's actually pretty close to release. It doesn't use any of the aliens or lore from the previous Star Control games, but it does look faithful to the original gameplay-wise. I'm actually quite surprised they're willing to keep the old 2D ship combat. As for the alien designs, I'm a bit mixed. Some of them I find pretty boring, but others I enjoy quite a bit. As for Ghost of the Precursors, all we have so far is an announcement that it's being developed. With 2 games in the same series being developed by completely different teams, you might be able to guess where the issue comes from. Both the original creators and Stardog are currently in a legal battle. I'm not a lawyer, so if you really want the ins and outs of it, I would recommend this video by Leonard French. But basically, Stardog currently has the rights to the name Star Control, while Paul and Fred have the rights to the content of the games. Stardog originally wanted Paul and Fred to help make a sequel to Star Control 2, but the two decided they would much rather make a sequel themselves without their help. Currently, Stardog is claiming that the original creators aren't allowed to publicly mention that Ghost of the Precursors is the true sequel to Star Control 2, while Paul and Fred are basically claiming that Stardog is unlawfully using the Star Control series without their consent, with theories online claiming that Stardog is trying to unjustly gain the entire rights to the series. I'm willing to give Origins a try if it turns out to be good, and it does seem faithful, but I also really want to play the true sequel to Star Control 2. Despite Star Control 2 being 27 years old, it's clear that while small, its fans really care about this game.
The name isn't that familiar.
Star Control might not be a big name series, but it has gotten quite a bit of critical acclaim. For example, I don't normally care about IGN's opinion, but IGN considered Star Control 2 to be the 17th best game of all time. Paul and Fred clearly care about this series. It's thanks to them that we even have Urquan Masters. They were the ones who gave Star Control 2 an open source release to begin with. It's thanks to them that we're able to freely download and mod the game to this day. I have absolutely no idea how this legal battle will end. I just hope that whatever happens, fans can look forward to more Star Control content in the future. After all, it's been 26 years since Star Control 2's release. Can I please get an ending? Like, who are the precursors, and what's gonna happen with the ores? Why is Vux such a pervert? And why did the background of the Melnorme starship turn purple? At the very least though, no matter what happens, fans will continue to support the game they care about, with things like Project 6014, a fan-made mod that is a continuation of the original Star Control 2. It's a bit strange that an obscure game like this is suddenly getting so much attention, but I hope at the very least it's enough to get people to look into the series, and who knows, I might have just created a few new future fans myself. As for me, I think it's about time I go back to the mineral grind.